Hello and welcome to 110 Yards. I'm Coach Aaron Page, a Canadian coaching American football in Denmark. Today I'm with Frank Kristensen. He's a referee with um, DAFF and IFAF, also known as Dommer, right, in Danish. How are you doing today,
Yeah,
Frank?
well done. Yes. Hi. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes. So, first of all, I guess we'll start out with why you became a referee for American football. It's a niche sport in Denmark and Europe as in general. So what sort of attracted you to that aspect of the game?
Yeah. I started after I was an exchange student in Kansas, of all places. So when I came back, I was in love with the game. I helped start a team, start a club. And at that point, I think that's still the case, each club has to supply officials to make the tournament go round. I was one of the leaders in the club, so I also became the referee. So it was really out of necessity at first that I became an official.
Okay, so um, and when you started the club, how long ago was that, and where's that club at today?
Now you're going to make me feel very, very old. This was back in 1991.
Okay,
I started a club in Fredericia, which is it's about 2 hours east of Copenhagen. I don't think there is a club in that town at the moment. Certainly the one that I helped uh, build no longer exists, unfortunately.
okay. I mean, and that's the nature of Europe sometimes, I think. But clubs come up and come down. But the refereeing really grabbed hold of you because now you're part of the DAF core group of referees, and you're involved with IFAF. We'll touch on what IFAF is a little bit later, but um, being part of that, how do you guys, uh, you know, get better professional development wise as the Danish American Football Association referees?
So, we practice almost like you guys, like coaches and players practice, not as much physically on the field, but the entire off season we're busy um, doing rules tests, rules questions. We get together on Zoom, look at video, look at training tapes of different situations, and talk about how it was handled on the field and in that game and how we should handle it. So we talk about all kinds of aspects, not just the rules, but also what we call mechanics, which is where to stand and where to look, so that we can officiate the play correctly. And we also talk about what we call philosophy, what you might call football IQ. So in a given situation, how are we going to handle this situation? Is there a difference between 0-0 and 0 to 50 in the way we're going to handle the situation? Um, so for me, it's an all year round avocation. I can't think of the last time I had an entire day where I didn't do something about football, because officials love the game just like players and coaches, and we can't help it.
Yeah, I always found that impressive because I find, and I'm sure maybe you as well, when I'm watching, NFL on Sunday or college, there's always these situations that pop up where it's like this is a weird like circumstance where I don't know what the rule is on this, or so I'm always impressed by the referees, like always basically having the answer. And you guys, obviously you mentioned you as part of another team sort of on the field, you guys are consider yourself training like we, and you rely on each other because maybe it's not easy to remember all the rules, and I know as a coach it's hard to keep track. So you have guys that sort of maybe specialize or have a more avid memory of certain aspects of the game that you can call upon with your crew with respect to during a game.
Um, it's not like we specialize. Different people have different areas of expertise. Obviously, just like anybody else, some people are better at the theory than others. Um, But it's funny you should mention that, because when I'm the head ref, the referee, I try to motivate the guys by saying there are 5 plays in this game that are going to either define the game, or the game is going to define you. So be ready for those 5 plays, just to keep everybody on their toes. But the plays you mentioned there in the NFL or college, each season also has 5 plays that are unique. And you can even take it a step further and say, in my career, there are probably 5 plays that stand out as being crazy or being very, very unusual. And a lot of the rules quizzes that we do, describe some kind of a game situation, 1st and 10 on the 20-yard line, and then this and this and this happens, and then the guy fumbles, and then this happens, and then the other guy fumbles, and then they run back, and then there's a score, and after the play, this happens. And you kind of think, this is never going to happen in a game. I mean, there's just no way until it does.
Yeah,
And
I know.
once in a season or once in a lifetime. And the satisfaction of being able to handle that situation correctly is just incredible. I mean, that's part of what motivates us.
Yeah, and that's what I find so amazing, because there's, and with the professional level, you always seem to get, 2 or 3 of those gray area weird scenarios a weekend, and maybe not so much over here, but there, like you said, there's always 5 plays that sort of make or break a game, and I can attest to that, having coached, in multiple games where there's always something. And so that kind of brings me, I'm going to come back a little bit, but we're going to get back to this point here. So when you started the club, back in 91, did you play at all with that club?
Yes, I played quarterback and receiver. I started in Philadelphia, and then played there for a number of years, and then I moved on to the Aarhus Tigers, where I played receiver for 1 year. And during that period, I was both a player and an official. So we would play a game on Saturday, and then we'd go officiate a game on Sunday, or the other way around. But I quickly realized that obviously my body wouldn't be able to handle being a player for forever. But being an official, you still have to be in shape, but it's not as taxing on your body, obviously, as it is to be a player. So I realized that I would be able to continue with that aspect, until I'm almost 50 now, and I have no plans of slowing down. So it's
Yeah.
just it's just a way of staying close to the game if you don't want to be a coach.
Yeah, and I that brings me to my next question is, do you think, so because there's some instances where a guy is maybe a little older, wants to get involved with the game and starts reffing, or um, but has never played. Do you think that affects their ability to be a ref, and in the, maybe not in a sense in their competence, but just understanding of what certain players are trying to do, or why, it could affect the way they see a call when they've never played against a defensive end, or understand what, like, the little nuances within the game from having actually played it.
It certainly could slow down the development a little bit, because you've never been on the field and you've never had that experience. So it's certainly a plus if you've been a player, and it's not a necessity. I mean, I know some officials who've never played who are top-notch officials. So it is possible to learn, but certainly it is an advantage to play the game. And if anytime we get ex-players who become officials, if you were a linebacker or an O-lineman, it'd be obvious to try them out as umpires initially, just because they know what's going on in the trenches. And if you're a receiver or a safety, try to be a deep official, because you know what receivers are trying to do to cornerbacks, and the other way around, so that you can use that knowledge to start out with. And then typically what we try to do is get everybody to try all the different positions as an official, just to see what they prefer. because once they, there's so much difference between being a referee or being an umpire or being a back judge. And it takes different tempers or different skill sets, depending on what position you are in the field, just like if you're a player, and it's very important that you work a position that you really, really like, because then it becomes more fun and you become better at it.
Yeah. And I agree with that because, uh, just like coaches, that coach in the upper echelons, they may have not played in the NFL or, even played college for that matter. So I don't see it as a huge barrier, like you said, but it can definitely slow down the progress, whether you're coaching or refereeing. And you did a great documentary sort of interview with First Down Photo that I really got a great insight as to sort of prep me for this interview. I thought it was amazing. It's in Danish, but there is closed captioning, and I'm going to post a link for that as well in this. But so back to in game and what affects those 5 plays. Other things that I find affect refs could be, fan reaction to certain calls, or even coaches' reactions or players on the field. And being human beings, that does sort of sprinkle its way in, or it can. Um, so how do you guys build up that tolerance to be able to, manage a game and not let emotions, take hold? Because I know that as players, that can happen with our opponents, and sometimes referees uh, get unnecessary criticism because coaches and players don't understand exactly what they're doing or what they're responsible for.
Yeah. There are two aspects of it, really. One is during the play, and one is between the plays. During the plays, I remember once seeing an interview with Michael Irvin, I think it was, where he was talking about how when the ball is coming to him, nothing else exists. And then when he catches the ball and play is over, I still get goosebumps, because he said now, the fans come back. Now he can hear everything. Now he notices the players, the teammates, and the fans cheering. It's pretty much the same for us. During the play, we are so focused in on our responsibilities and our keys and our players that, it could be, the play really doesn't matter. We don't really see the game. We don't see the game as an exciting game. If I'm the referee, I see my quarterback, maybe a running back, let's say it's a passing play. I see the quarterback in the pocket. I may see a running back if he's in pass pro, and I'll see my tackle if he's my key. Once he throws the ball, it's gone. I don't see it anymore. I don't know what happens down the field. So I don't get involved in the, in the craziness the same way. Between the plays, you do get to feel, and you have to be able to feel, the mood of the game, the intensity, to be able to handle players and talk to players and coaches. But for us, we take great pride in being calm when everybody around us are going crazy. It helps us a little bit, and this is probably one of the things that's difficult for you to understand as a coach, but we have no interest in who wins the game. We do not care. So being all hyped up about this team driving down the field to potentially score and win the game, to us it's just a drive in a close game. Whether they score or not, it doesn't make any difference to us. Whoever wins, wins. We're going to have a good game and a close game, whoever wins. So that part of it, we try to sympathize with the players and the coaches, just to try to know what they're going through and know why they're reacting the way they are. But it is a completely different game we watch. Even when I watch games on TV, I don't care who wins. And that's not why I watch the game. Sometimes in the off season, we'll get together, a bunch of officials and watch a game, and we will be watching the same stuff that we would during a game. So we'll be watching that. Oh, that was a holding. Yes, that was a holding. And
Yeah.
then, after the play, you see, oh, there's a flag, and then the referee comes on. We don't see the running back, and oh, now he made it beyond 100 yards rushing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We're looking at our stuff, and that probably helps us keep our calm during the game.
Yeah, because and I'm the same way when I watch most of the teams. Like I got my favorite team, but in general, when I'm watching, I don't care, and I'm watching it like a coach. If I see great technique, I'm like, dang, look at that, So I can relate to you on that regard. Um,
We
but
do that for the officials.
yeah,
That was a good movement by that official.
yeah, like ooh, that guy's got a good speed up the sideline there. But
Yeah.
and that brings me to like I took a look at the rule book, and there's great like case studies in there. We talked about how there's different scenarios and stuff, but also that I had another book here available to me. It was the officials IFAF officials guide. So I was flipping through that, and it was showing me, when there's 5 officials, where they're supposed to be and what responsibilities they have, which was something I didn't really know a whole lot about prior to looking at that. And that made me think that there's sometimes a disconnect with coaches, when they're yelling at the closest guy, which is usually the linesman on their sideline, about things that he has no sight picture of or no responsibility for. And so
Yeah.
what do you think coaches sort of miss or misunderstand when it comes to dealing with officials, game to game?
It's an interesting point you bring up, because the officials on the sideline are the primary communicators with that coach. So whoever was responsible for that call or no call, I mean, you as a coach can't talk to the umpire right away, or even the guys on the other sideline. So your only option is to talk to the guy on your sideline. But you're right. Sometimes, you say, why didn't you call that? Well, it was, clear across the field, and I was looking somewhere else. And players do the same. I'll be looking at the quarterback even after he throws the ball, because he could still get roughed, and then he'll complain to me that I didn't call the pass interference 50 yards down the field.
Yeah.
So it still happens. Back in the day, it was more difficult for us to communicate across the field. Now that we have the radios, it's a little bit easier, and we're working on, let's say something happens on one sideline, and the calling official decides that's not enough for pass interference. The good ones now go on the radio and say, this was not pass interference because whatever it was. So that the guy on the other sideline, who is now responsible for talking to the coach, already knows what was going on over there. So that when you come up and ask him, why wasn't that pass interference, he can say, well, the guy over there that made the call says, the ball arrived before the contact happened, or, whatever it was. So we do try to compensate a little bit and help each other out, because, we really want to get all that communication out to the coach before he needs to ask for it. That's a big part of what we want to achieve during a game is communication with the coaches. Sometimes we don't have time because the game is going fast, but it should never be a situation where we don't want to talk to a coach. Sometimes we prefer to talk to the head coach, because assistant coaches tend to be a little bit more livid. Sometimes where the head coaches are usually a little bit more, calm and distanced from the game, because they have to have that cool and collected, overview of the game and the situation. Plus, having 10 assistant coaches in your ear can be a little distracting, but one head coach is usually, that's doable.
Yes.
I think another thing that's typically is I often get the question from coaches, can't you just tell me what's legal and what's illegal? So that I can tell my players, you can do this and you can't do that. In kind of a black and white version. And the thing is, I can't think of a call on the field right off the top of my head that's black and white. We live in a gray area.
This is true.
Everything is gray zone. Whether it's some of the things that is as black and white as it gets could be a false start. But you can always get down to where it's a gray area of, was that enough to call, or was that not enough, and can we deal with that with the top two, and any time we talk to a player, watch your hands or move back a little bit, it's typically a situation where what they did was technically illegal, but we're trying to deal with it without slowing the game down, without throwing 50 flags a game.
Yeah.
So, whenever a player or a coach gets upset because we talk to them, really, they should be appreciative because we're trying to help them.
I agree. And in my past, like, I've never had a bad run-in with refereeing. I've been I've been the assistant where I'm a little more emotionally charged. But then when I started taking on head coaching roles, when you said you get a little kind of more zen, as I'd like to say, or because you have to have that relationship with the referees and the officials, and you don't want to ruin any of the relationship in game, because then maybe they're not going to give you the full end. Like, you guys typically do a good job but if a coach is not being civil or respectful, then it's hard to to give all that information sometimes. And with the kind of moving on with the IFAF stuff that you're involved with, how does that how do you get into that, and what sort of is there extra training you have to do to ref on the international level? Is there like step by step programs within the countries?
The first thing you have to do is you have to become one of the best officials in your country, so that your own national federation recommends you, or your national officiating committee or federation, whatever the case may be, recommends you for an IFAF clinic. And then typically, the officials get together for an annual clinic, and then each country has a what we call a country contact, which is really the person in charge of deciding which officials are eligible for international assignments. So once you get to that level, you have an opportunity to be assigned to either national team games, single games, or club team games, or one of the the European Championship tournaments, or even the World Cup.
And
that's in your own country.
But within that, like within that process and the training you guys do in the video breakdowns, do some guys, because you're not trying to slow any of the games down, and you're trying to make the right calls and fix the little technicalities that could be illegal. Do you get guys wanting to kind of show that they're look, I called a piling on, for example, like, I saw that, and it's it's human nature. They want to show that they're paying attention and they're doing their job right, but maybe getting a little overzealous with the yellow flags. And do you have to kind of reel them back as a mentor to the younger guys coming up and say, look, you're a great ref, but you have to, we don't want to throw flags the whole game. We want to keep it, more of a high paced game, and you're going to get your shot if you continue to, perform under the right circumstances.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens. I think it's just a normal part of developing a skill, is that, initially you're scared to even be out there. You don't want to blow your whistle. You don't want to throw your flag. And then once you get used to being out there, you start seeing the game. It starts to slow down. All of a sudden, you see all these things that are illegal, and you got to call it. There's a holding. There's a false start. There's an illegal formation. There's a clipping or a tripping or whatever it is. And sometimes we get officials who read a rule in the pregame, and then lo and behold, they call that 3 times during the game because they just read that rule. And then the next step in that development is to say, well, have you ever seen anybody in the pros or in college or even our national league call that? And then they say, well, no, but it was right there. Yeah. But there are other ways to deal with that. So they go from not calling everything or not calling anything to calling everything, to when we apply the philosophy is to realize when do we need to call it and when can we deal with it in other ways. You become more surgical in your application of the rules.
Yeah, and I think from my experience seeing refs develop just in Canada or over time, through the high school season, you see the guy, going like you said, not calling anything, then calling everything, and then kind of they find that middle ground. Now, are there some games where uh, you sort of gauge the two teams and maybe let them play a little bit more? Like, does that what you mean by the philosophy? Maybe it's not illegal, like you said, it's those gray areas, but you let a little more like back and forth between the DBs and receivers, or maybe that's ref or official dependent. And I don't see anything wrong with that as long as it's sort of balanced within the scheme and not over the line either way. But does that happen, depending on game to game, obviously?
For the how much we let the receivers and the cornerbacks battle, hopefully we can use some of the training tapes that we have to show examples of this is too much and this is not enough, and here we can have a talk to and stuff like that. And then you can kind of build a library of plays so that when you see something on the field, you can recognize. And that kind of reminds me of the thing I saw in that training tape where the supervisor said that was a talk to. So hopefully, we try to be consistent from game to game, not just from play to play, and also from official to official.
Right.
Does that always happen? Absolutely not. But that's what we're striving for, is that consistency completely across, even across country, if you're looking at the IFAF level.
Yes.
As for the philosophy, obviously, if we have a situation with a running clock where one team is up by 40 points, we don't want to. We'll let more stuff go. If it's safety issues, we still call it. We don't mess around with that because safety of the players is still very, very high on our priority. But if it's a formation, if it's a little hold, and score is 40-0, we have this saying is, if the game wants to die, we need to let it.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't want to stop the game for ticky-tacky.
Yeah.
But a lot of our philosophy really also deals with what we call the when in doubt principles. So one example could be, let's say we have a lateral pass that is very, very close to be 90 degrees to the sideline. So we have to make a decision. Was this a backward pass? Was it a forward pass? If it happens in the backfield, we would typically say it's a forward pass, because then if it becomes incomplete, or if it's not caught, it's an incomplete, it's a dead ball. We don't have to deal with a live ball, potentially a turnover, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
In the backfield, it would typically, when in doubt, it's going to be a forward pass. It's going to be a rule of forward pass. Once the runner goes beyond the line of scrimmage and he does the same type of pass, now our philosophy is it's going to be a backward pass. Because if he does a forward pass beyond the line of scrimmage, it's illegal.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can help it, we want to make it legal in this situation, and we're going to rule it as a backward pass. So those type, we have a ton of those when in doubt principles that we have to, we have to know well enough that we can apply them on the field, in a split second when it happens. So that's really what we're talking about most of the time when we talk philosophy and game situations.
Yeah. And now, obviously when you're coming up as a ref and learning and getting to where you're at, like there probably have been a few mistakes along the way. And and same with me in coaching, we've all been there. But how do you react to that, or how do you tell the younger guys coming up, like, if you made a mistake, big one that I'll point out is maybe inadvertent whistle on a fumble or something like that. What do you say to the guys coming up, or what did you do for yourself to deal with that and in those situations?
That's a really good question. I typically, especially if I'm the referee, um, I tell the official, right when it happens or right after, before the next play, I tell him, right now you have an opportunity to show everybody that you can focus on the next play. And that's really that's a crucial ability to have as an official, to forget the last play and focus on the next one. What we really don't want to see is somebody who screws up and then for the next 5 minutes or the next 10 plays, they're kicking themselves and then more mistakes happen.
Hmm.
And sometimes you can tell that they're just, kicking the dirt or kicking themselves or, and you can just tell they're not in the game anymore. So really, it's sometimes it's an opportunity to show that you can bounce back.
Yeah.
And I typically tell them, right now is your opportunity. It doesn't come along very often, but right now you have a chance to show that you can focus. And then a lot of times that happens.
That's true. And that's great advice. It's like kind of like, it's not what you did, it's what you do next.
Yeah.
And
Short memory.
yeah, exactly. And and then so the guys that get to go to IFAF, and is the dream for some of them to go, eventually to the States and maybe work their way up there. Have we had anyone from Europe, go to the NCAA, or is it kind of tough where they have their own tiered system in
Yeah.
the US?
I've been fortunate enough that I've worked a number of junior college games in California, and I've been able to take some people with me, some Danish officials, some from Norway, Poland, Germany, Holland, just to get over there and get that experience. Even though it's the lowest college level, some of those players in California, they're pretty good. If you've seen Last Chance U, I've worked a number of games at Laney College.
No way.
Actually,
Okay.
and compared to most European leagues, even junior college in the US, they're pretty good, especially in California. There are a lot of players there that are D1 players without the grades to go to the D1 school. But you have to, and I was fortunate that I had some contacts that were able to get me in there, where we did, 2 or 3 games a year on a weekend, because otherwise, there's work permits, there's, you have to be in the association, you have to go to the clinic, you have to do all this kind of stuff. And to do that for just 1 weekend or even 2 weekends, it's just very, very difficult. So it's not really something that happens. I know some people who go to Texas and work some high school games, because Texas high school uses NCAA rules, which is obviously very much closer to IFAF than high school. So that's an opportunity. But again, you still have to know people, you have to know the right people, you have to be able to go there and do it. But if you get a chance, it's a lot of fun. It's very educational, and you find out. I'm sure it's the same in coaching, that officials are the same wherever you go. You really have to be an open-minded. You have to be a people person to be able to handle the stress of officiating. So when we get together, for games or go to dinner after the game, it's always nice people. It's always a lot of fun to get together with them. And I have a lot of friends in California now because of that. Even though
Nice.
it's a number of years since I've worked in the games over there.
And so do you guys here do any recruiting as to get more youth involved with officiating? Is that something that you'd like to see become more prominent? Because I feel like it's sort of most of the time it's like you said, you play, you want to stay involved with the game, and you're banged up, and then you start refereeing. But I know there's some younger guys getting involved, and is that a trend that you'd like to see continue?
Absolutely. I mean, we can use all the people who are interested, and then some. Most officials come in through a club, so either they were players or they know somebody who played and they got interested in the game. We do have a few officials who actually, reached out to somebody in the officiating committee or somebody they know, and then become officials without having a club affiliation. But most people start in the club and then they realize, like I did, that officiating was a lot of fun and it was something I could do, beyond my playing years. And then once they get to a certain level, they get interested in maybe trying out the National League, which is the highest Danish level, and then they take it from there, and then they become what we call club neutral. And for us in the National League group, it's pretty much a fraternity.
Yeah.
We'd love to have female officials also, but it's a close knit group, and we meet for barbecue and we meet for brunch before the games, and we meet in the off season and watch college games, and we just have a lot of fun together too.
But that's a good point, because there's not a lot of you guys, in Europe as a whole, being officials at the highest level. It's a very small group, and I relate to that as guys like me from North America coaching or playing over here. That it's a very small group, so it's nice to have that sort of safety net and friend group, knowing and can relate to everything you do. Um, so before we kind of close this out, there's a last couple of things I want to talk to you about, and the first thing is the evolution of RPOs and how that's affected the game. With the linemen,
Mhm.
climbing, and that's probably the biggest gray area. And as of right now, it's kind of they've been letting things go, quite a bit at all levels. Um, but for me, I don't see it changing. I see it maybe getting more allowed because they want higher scores or what have you. But has that affected the way you guys have trained in the last few years and what you're looking at as far as offensive line play? Because it is
Yeah.
sort of, you get coaches on the other side saying, "Hey, they got guys downfield," and so
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We do that a lot. Specifically with ineligibles downfield. It used to be where it's typically a broken play where a lineman go downfield. Um, a lot of times, what happens is, the pass goes, the eyes of the coach go with the ball, and then the ball gets caught, and all of a sudden you realize, or you notice a lineman downfield. Well, that's not really, for us at least, that's not the right timing of it, because what we're trying to look at is where is that lineman when the ball is being released. That is specifically what the rule says.
mhm.
So from the time the ball is released to the ball goes down the field and is caught, that lineman can move 5 yards. And then it looks clearly illegal. I mean,
Yes.
he's 5, 7 yards down the field, but he was only 2 yards down the field when the ball was released. And that's something that a lot of coaches typically don't realize or don't think about in the heat of the moment. So what we try to do with ineligibles downfield is really to look at the timing of the play.
Mhm.
Because if it happens like a typical RPO is, you know, a long snap to a pistol quarterback, a fake handoff, and a pass. You know, it happens fairly quickly. So that, and the reason it happens so quickly, and you know this as a coach, is because then the linemen don't have time to go downfield.
Exactly.
As soon as the quarterback has to pump or has to move a little bit or even has to roll out, now it's a broken play. Now there's a much more, you know, risk or opportunity, depending on your point of view, of that lineman being down the field. So what we're trying to identify is that the timing of the play. If it's a normal timing, we don't look too much at it because, you know, the linemen don't have time to go down the field. As soon as it gets broken up, and now we start to look at it, and then we have different officials, depending on what happens on the play, who are responsible to look for that.
Okay. Yeah, and that's true because I've reacted in a way like, hey, there he is, but then also running RPOs myself. Yeah, the ball's out within 2.5 seconds, and so for that amount of time gives your lineman the ability to climb with the ball already being gone. Um, and then the last thing was, off the top of your head, is there any sort of weird rules that haven't ever been seen by you? And for me, I was looking through the rule book the other day. So I saw something interesting, and I don't know if it can be taken advantage of or not, but basically a punt can be advanced by the kicking team if it's caught behind the line of scrimmage. And that could be by an ineligible, what have you. And I don't see that as really viable in a fake punt scenario, but I thought it was an interesting rule. But is there any sort of kind of funky rule that you don't come across too often, or that maybe there's a loophole there that could be exploited?
You know, most of the rules are in the rule book because coaches were trying to find a loophole. So if you think the rules are crazy complex, well, it's to plug all the holes that the coaches are trying to, to find. One rule that I think is kind of funny, quirky, is the intentional grounding. So let's say you have a play where the quarterback grounds the ball and the referee throws a flag for intentional grounding. The rule says that it's going to be the passing, it's a loss of down at the spot of the foul, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the sack that you were trying to avoid, right? The rule also says that in a situation where you have an illegal forward pass, the ball belongs to the passing team at the spot of the pass. Mm. So you could have a situation if it wouldn't make any difference in the game, but I just thought it would be kind of a fun thing to do. Once in my career, is for a coach to decline the intentional grounding, and the result of the play would be the same as if he accepted the penalty.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
the pass belongs to the passing team at the spot of the pass.
Yeah, that's interesting.
For whatever reason, beyond that, I've never seen a fumble rooski, outside of the longest yard.
Yeah.
I've never seen it on the field. It would be illegal, but you'd have to go back to the 1980s and the Cornhuskers.
Nebraska. Yeah. Yeah.
See that. But that was probably a coach saying, "Hey, this is a good play," and then they decided, "No, that's not a good play," so they had to put in a rule.
Yeah. Also, you know what? Actually, right before we close this off, the illegal tactics, that's one that kind of strikes me as also odd a little bit, because when you're going with a hard count, for example, because you're trying to draw like an offside for you're trying to get them, and
Right.
and then there's like that, there's a line of illegal tactics, like if you have a coach saying, "Hey, come over here, I need to I forgot to tell you something about the play, and the quarterback motions over, and everyone's like, oh, in maybe a closed formation, and now no one's run out with them, and then you snap the ball and he runs a go route. That would be
That-
more the illegal tactics. But where's the difference in some of that stuff? You know,
Yeah, the difference is that as soon as you, for example, use the substitution process as part of your tactic, as soon as you're saying to the defense, we're not going to snap the ball now,
hmm
um, you know, come over here, I need to tell you something, is not part of the, is not part of the play.
right.
That becomes the unsportsmanlike. Uh, you know, the Philly special where the quarterback is going around talking to different players, like they're putting in a new play and then they snap the ball, is different in the way that everything happens on the field and the sideline is not involved at all.
Right.
You know, to us, that's one of the that's the line in the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've probably seen the other situation where, you know, at the end of the game, you're trying to run out the clock, so you long snap it, and then everybody on the offense holds somebody, and
Yes.
you can't get down to the ball, and the clock runs out. You know, that was probably also some ingenious coach that said this is the way for us to run off the clock and we can win the game. Where the rule committee, you know, which is made up of coaches, decided no, that's we don't want that in the game. That's not a, you know, that's not a good way to finish the game.
Yeah.
So in that situation, we would also use the unfair tactics rule and say, okay, everybody is charged with an unsportsmanlike conduct. We're going to put time back on the clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't. I mean, that is not for, you know, for the housewife or for the mom sitting at home. That's not a good way to end the game. You
No.
know, if you look at it objectively.
No, and it's always interesting when there are those, like, the more famous one was Belichick and the Titans, or getting the false start within 5 minutes left in the quarter, the clock can continue to run, and so yeah, it's there's like you said, the loopholes are, or the rules are made to stop these loopholes, but people still ultimately find little ways to take advantage sometimes.
Players and coaches do what they can to win,
Mm,
which is what that's their job.
yeah,
But you know, the rules are there to make it an even playing field, but also to keep the game level and keep it fair and keep it interesting. You know,
yeah,
beyond, you know, you want to win this specific game any means possible. Well, take it a step back and be the commissioner. You know, you want to have a good product to sell, and you know, with those types of shenanigans or whatever you want to call them, you know, that's not what people come to see.
yeah. That's true.
Maybe that's the bottom line of it.
Yeah. Well, Frank, I want to thank you for coming on. This was really insightful, and I think a lot of people will be interested in listening to to the little bit of a different side of the game. I know it was great for me, and I look forward to seeing you around Denmark at the games, and
I hope so.
yeah. So thank you very much, and
Thank
take
you.
care.